But you never know that you could. And when you feel that way, ain't it good, good dancing in the red and gold. Dancing in the red and gold.
Hello and welcome everybody to the latest edition of 49er Faithful UK Live. I'm Nick Ludlam.
That makes me Paul Hope.
Stealing my lines. But anyway, guys, as we all know, it is getting closer and closer to the season. News is dropping. There's plenty of talk about. We've got Brock. We've got new signings. We've got various other things. And of course, Paul's favourite, where he gets to bully me, the would you rathers, but they, of course, come later on. So the first thing I suppose to ask, Paul, how's your week been, mate?
Yeah, not bad, buddy. My favourite segment of the show, it's quickly turned. It used to be your favourite segment, but I've been warned by my good lady Tracy, who everybody watching has heard lots about. She's told me I have to be a little bit nicer to my friend Nick. So bear that in mind later when we do our favourite segment of the show. But, Nick, we are joined by James Waters, who is not only out in San Francisco, everybody, he's actually waiting before he heads off out to watch the show. So the pressure is on for us boys to make it a good one, but we do appreciate you tuning in. And James, if any breaking news happens while you're out there, please hit me up in the DMs because we can say, as per our source, James Waters. And we're joined by a couple of other favourites. So Colin is in the house, bang bang, and 49ers Simon. Evening, gents, bang bang Niner gang. So as you said, Nick, there's only one place to start tonight, isn't there, buddy?
Pretty much. It's the news that everyone has been talking about. It's the news that a lot of us have been waiting for. Apparently some haven't been. But Brock Purdy is throwing a football once again, and he's doing it on schedule. That's the big thing. There's been no setbacks yet. I mean, what did you think of the whole news, mate?
Well, I did a show with Dan from Let's Talk Sports yesterday. It hasn't gone out yet. He's had a few teething problems with his channel, so he's been pre-recording a lot of stuff. And as you can imagine, Nick, I can't talk to Dan without talking 49ers quarterbacks. And whatever I said yesterday is already out of date. And that's what I love about the NFL. So we had a big discussion about Trey Lance, Brock Purdy, and then we wake up this morning on this side of the pond to the article dropped by Matt Miyoko. Now, if it was anybody else, mate, if it was any of the talking heads, if it was any of our favourite content creators, I might have taken it with a pinch of salt. But when it comes from Matt Miyoko, you kind of sit up and you think he's connected to the team. He's obviously got that integrity. He's broke news before. And it was so simple what he broke. But like you said, all he's confirmed is Brock is throwing a real football, not a Nerf ball, not a tennis ball, not a tea towel. It is only June the 6th. So please do temper those expectations, everybody. But the news is, as it stands today, Brock Purdy will be cleared by August the 21st, which I've got to give Brock the heads up, Nick. He knows me and you were taking a break in August. First couple of weeks of August, you knew we were on holiday. So he said to the surgeon, 21st, give them lads a chance to get back. So hopefully, fingers crossed, there's no setbacks. But that's massive news for the 49ers if Brock Purdy is good to go on August the 21st. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, they've said it multiple times now. John Lynch has gone as far as calling in the leader in the clubhouse. Yeah, by all accounts, he's going to be the number one for the 49ers moving forward. It's going to take something fairly special from Trey Lance. I don't see Sam Darnold being up to the task of dislodging Brock, but I could see potential. There is potential for Trey. I'm still going to run with the assumption that Trey's going to start week one because, like you said, there is a long time between now and week one. A lot can go wrong, and it doesn't have to be anything serious. It's not. He doesn't have to get hit by one of the D linemen because obviously he's going to be red shirt. You're not allowed to touch the quarterback when it comes to camps. But it can be something ridiculous. I always remember the old Liverpool goalkeeper back in the 90s. He was a reserve keeper, thankfully. But he managed to break his arm when he dropped an iron. And he was trying to stop it from burn mark on the floor. It can be stupid things. It doesn't have to be him playing sport. It can be anything that causes something to set him back. He could get an infection. There is a lot of things that can go wrong. That is why I am still running with the assumption that week 1 will be Trey Lance for the moment. I can always be pleasantly surprised, but I can't be disappointed that way.
We missed an opportunity. Luke, we're still rusty in the off-season. The start of the show, we're pretty good. You've beat us to it, Luke. So Luke has joined us from across the pond. He's put happy lunch hour from top of the bay.
Good days, mate.
James a message from the other side of the Golden Gate Bridge. And 49ers Simon is showing his loyalty. We know where his allegiance stands. He's all aboard the Brock Express. So we did promise ourselves pre-show that we weren't going to get carried away tonight, everybody. But Rob, I do appreciate that the comments. I was on the wrong side of the chat, depending on which way you sit last night. There's a lot of love for your 87, as always, Nick.
You got to love a bit of Dwight Clark. In fact, this was the jersey I actually ended up buying at the Saints game at Levi's last year. So I've been pretty much rocking it since.
So Brian in the house, I've said it before. If you haven't followed Brian, please do. He's a great follow on Twitter. He's got his own channel and he's always great for the content. And he's also on board Team Moody. In fact, I think Brian was probably there before we were, but he's shown the love. We're joined by Wayne, everybody's favourite photographer. And let's have a little look. And James has put the Purdy jersey is one of his must-haves from this trip, as he already has a Trey Lance one. And he says hi to Luke. Now, to be fair, Nick, all jokes aside, we can't dismiss Trey Lance. No. My non-Niner friends take great delight in reminding me of the take last year. Like everybody, this time last year was high on Trey Lance. He was the future. He was installed as QB1. He was looking good in OTAs. Week 1 against Chicago was a washout. Obviously, He got injured. Now, if you don't want to take my word for it, you good people, just go and Google George Kittle. And he did an interview recently where he said, Trey's got the talent. He just hasn't had the chance. And the NFL is an unforgiving creature. Now, Brock Purdy, as Matt Miyoko's article said, isn't ever going to get beat out in practice because he left it all on the field. Yes, it was a small sample size, but those 8 regular season games and then what he did in the playoffs have obviously convinced Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, the team. Like you said, Nick, they've been consistent. John Lynch has come out, said he's the leader of the clubhouse. Kyle Shanahan, who we all love. We wish he'd give us a little bit more. We joked off air, me and Nick, that he just came out and went, yeah, OTAs are done. It's like he does every year, but every year it shocks us because he's just so simple. And he's a player's coach. And the reason why that's quite big is because he's moved the mandatory camp up. It means that they get an extra week in July before training camp starts. And you think, put 2 and 2 together, Mr. Ludlam. Does that mean Brock Purdy gets another week of rest? Yes, it does. And it all starts to click. Our good friend Ted Talks Ball put a tweet out yesterday. I believe he's as active as I am. So if I got the date wrong. But he'd said all this talk about the quarterback, mate. We've kept 19 of 21 starters. So when non-Niners fans say, oh, you lads are homers, you call them for a Super Bowl run, we weren't far away last year. Yeah. And we've kept 19 of the 21 starters. So
absolutely,
of course I'm confident.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sorry, but if Brock Purdy's fit, I will stand by this till the day that I die. The Niners would have beaten the Eagles in that game. I don't think the Eagles were all that good. You're talking, they should have beaten us by an awful lot more, considering we were running with QB4. And then in the second half, we were running without a QB, essentially, because Brock couldn't throw. They should have beaten us by a lot more than they did. They weren't that impressive. If the Niners have QB1 and Brock Purdy in that whole game, they win. They go to the Super Bowl. Whether they win or not is another matter, but they beat the Eagles.
Yeah. And as Rob said there, what you've got to love with Kyle Shanahan, most head coaches, Rob says, wouldn't have Purdy's come back against TJ Watt, against McKivitz. But Kyle is that guy. And as you said, if he gets injured, it was a freak accident. Now, before we came live, I was watching our good friends Jason and Ponte, and they were talking about Trey Lance. There was a lot of talk, Nick, about Trey Lance being traded. And a lot of talk about the June 1st deadline. So if we traded him before June the 1st, the cap hit would have been massive. And there's going to be a lot of talk between now and the start of the season. I said it on Let's Talk Sports last night. I don't think we trade him as it stands at the moment, unless we get a blockbuster offer. Because let's face it, there is still question marks on Brock.
Yeah.
Simon, I'm leading in with your comment. Don't worry, I didn't miss you. So again, Sam Darnold, from the stuff that I've seen, Nick, in OTAs, Darnold's been looking everything we thought he would. There's been a lot of talk about if it was arm talent alone, Sam Darnold would be one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. Now, before people like Alex Simpson clip and send that viral, notice I said if it was on arm talent alone, and it's not. There's a lot of question marks on what Sam Darnold sees. You yourself are well documented saying you don't trust USC quarterbacks. But what I'm saying is it isn't just the arm talent, because we all fell in love with Trey Lance. We fell in love with the intangibles that us as non-QB experts, we fell in love with the physical attributes. We fell in love with the talk about Kyle Shanahan on the plane with his iPad, designing the plays. I was quite high on Justin Fields at the time. The NFL, these mobile dual threat quarterbacks. We look at Mahomes. Everybody wants one of them, Nick.
Of course they do.
Now, that's the worry if Trey Lance does have to leave the San Francisco 49ers. And that is a big question mark. If he does become what we'd hoped he'd become somewhere else, that's going to be a bitter pill to swallow, despite how good Brock could be.
It could be. But why look at what you don't have? Why not just focus on what you do have? If Brock goes and takes us to number 6 and number 7, potentially, and who knows what, then fine. I'm not going to worry too much about someone who's left us. What I don't think, it doesn't make any sense to be trading Trey yet. At the moment, his market value is at its all-time low. We're not going to get a great deal for him right now. We're not going to get that blockbuster offer. So there's literally no point. And like I said, there's still questions over Brock. We don't know if he is going to be 100% yet, because we're not there. We have to wait until we're there. So it makes zero sense trading him when he's at his lowest and when we're not sure if Brock is ready to go. You might as well, if Brock is only 95%, I'm still going to go with Trey Lance.
Yeah.
Because at that point, you're going to find he's going to have the opportunity to go out, play well, increase his trade value, which is only good for the team, because that's what we're looking at here. It has to be what's good for the team. And trading Trey right now isn't good for the team. It just doesn't make any sense. Even if I am on selling tickets for the Brock Express, it's irrelevant. It still doesn't make sense to the team to even be looking at trading Lance at the moment. You can start making up things here and there, maybe sort of wet the whistle a little bit with a few GMs, just in case they are interested, because the Niners have sniffed around a 4th quarterback within the last week.
I thought you were going to go down that way. Before, hold that thought, because I'll lose my chain of thought. So Brian is saying thank you. It's much love appreciated. Brian, you're a big fan of what we do, so we like to give credit where credit's due. And he's got the chat on fire, Nick, with his call. We knew where Brian was going with this. Moody Rookie of the Year. Stick around, Brian. We're going to have our Moody watch a little bit later, because I've interrupted Nick. And there's a comment that I think you will agree while I've got you getting your breath. So Luke has put 87, Dwight Clark's entry into the NFL is a great story. Drafted in the 10th round or 12th round.
It's amazing. When they, I think, Luke, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe when they actually went to Clemson, they weren't even looking at Dwight. I believe they were looking at Clemson's quarterback, and they needed someone to basically catch passes, run routes. And so because Dwight was the quarterback's roommate, they said, "Oh, come down, run some routes for us." And of course, they never took Clemson's quarterback. They took a plucky young lad out of Notre Dame that year. That seemed to work out rather well. And of course, they ended up taking Dwight, and the rest is history. We all know what happens after that.
Well, you are correct, because when I was laid up last year, I did a lot of reading on the Niners history, and I read that in the Bill Welsh book that somebody had got me about that anecdote you've given there. Luke agrees with you, which most of us do, Nick, about the fact that we stuffed the Eagles and we would have won. And Simon has put that he remembers an embarrassment of riches at QB. Remember, Dallas took Aikman and Walsh. And I have seen it's an XFL quarterback that we're working out.
Yeah.
I've seen the rumour mill kick into overdrive, Nick, which says that means definitely Trey Lance is gone. It means there's a trade in the background. We're just waiting to announce it. Now, if that is true, I can kind of understand that. But as Sam just put there, I think Kyle Shanahan has shown we've all fell in love with this story of Brock, and he came as Mr. Irrelevant in the 7th round. Kyle Shanahan doesn't care whether he drafts you in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 7th round. Now, like you said, Nick, if you took the names away, if we're sat here next year with number 6 in the cabinet, I don't care who's under centre. If Sam Darnold's the one that brings it back, so be it. But I think there's been a lot of non-Niners fans really hold on to the fact that we traded up for Trey Lance and the team weren't patient and we're in this win now mode. You kind of knew what you were getting, but you didn't know what you were getting. It's the draft. You took a punt on his potential. You've brought him in. He's been unlucky with his injuries. And at the moment, as it stands today, personally, I wouldn't trade him. I would just see how it goes in training camp. Now, I do believe Sam Darnold is nailing down QB2. And I think Sam will only be here for 1 year, given the details of his contract. And I think we could see some movement. But I think the team would be stupid if we moved on from either Brock or Trey at the moment, because, like you said, Trey's trade potential is at an all-time low. You're not going to get anything back that you want. And as Simon's put there, true words, number 6, no matter who's QB. But we had to start with the QB, Nick, didn't we? We couldn't start anywhere else.
It's the big news. It's the news that everyone's been waiting for. We've all wanted to see those pictures of Brock with a ball in his hand, and it's happened. It's happened. And like I said, well, we've as much as we've talked about it already, the only real takeaway you can have from it, there's not been a setback yet. And that's awesome. That's good enough for me. There hasn't been a setback. Brilliant. Let's keep it rolling.
To be honest, before we move on, everyone, I'm going to make Nick laugh. I haven't shared this with him yet. This is what we do on the 49erFaithfulUK Live.
Yeah.
We roll with the punches. No, you'll like this. At the weekend, when I was preparing for flag training, I thought, you know what, Nick? We're not going to do QB talk. I'd seen some tweets about the workout that Trey Lance was doing, the one where they do the footwork drill over the bag, which Kyle Shanahan likes. Anybody who watches the QB collective, it's what Shanahan does with all the young QBs. And it was a footwork drill, but there was a lot made at the end of the drill. Trey throws the ball, not even to a wide receiver. It's just a staff member on the sideline. And because the staff member didn't catch it, everybody was up in arms and people were evaluating it. And I thought, you know what? We're going to be different on the 49erFaithfulUK show. It's June. Training camp hasn't started yet. And then Matt Miyoko dropped that article. And then I was like, yeah, cheers, Matt. Back to the drawing board, because we're going to have to start with QB talk. But all jokes aside, that's a real story to talk about. Not what's happened at training camp, not what's happened at practice. And I suppose we live in the modern era where you can dissect everything. Like 10 years ago, you probably wouldn't have got that footage of that drill. And it did make me chuckle. I can remember last year, OTAs, there was an epic throw from Trey Lance where he's rolling out the pocket and he fizzes one to Brandon Ayuk, and everybody was like, and me included, I was like, wow.
It was beautiful.
So you fast forward to this year, and yet again, footage has come out from OTAs. It just goes to show you sometimes it can be a fickle beast. I mean, ultimately, all we want week 1 against the Pittsburgh Steelers is a healthy QB under center that knows the offense, that has the chemistry with the team, and leads us to a W. Because after last year's debacle in Chicago, I do not want to start the season with a loss. I don't know how you're feeling, mate.
Well, I in our all too early season prediction, I called a loss week 1. I desperately want to be wrong. Of course I do. You know, I want to start with a nice win. I want to start with, let's get 4 wins off the bat. The team have said, the first 4 are very winnable. A lot of people have said that. Well, if we can start 4-0, we've already put a stamp down on the division. At that point, then, all we have to do is win our divisional games, and we're in the playoffs. You don't even need a particularly good record, because all you got to do is beat the Seahawks. That's all it is.
I mean, obviously, I think we touched upon this last week. I mean, the Rams and the Cardinals are just in a fire sale to see who can get to the bottom first. I mean, Christ, the Cardinals are paying Hopkins $22 million not to play for them this year. And I mean, the Rams, like I've said to you before, my friend Mike, who's a Rams fan, he's already written this season off. And
it's crazy. Like you say, everyone is racing to get. Oddly, after what we've said, well, certainly what I've said about USC quarterbacks, they're all after a USC quarterback. But no, he might be the guy that breaks it. I mean, there's never been an Iowa State quarterback that's done so well in the past. Someone's got to do it. Why can't it be this young lad coming through now next year?
And just remember, Ashley Lewis, aka Ash Purdy himself, did tell me and you last year on the Red and Gold shows that Purdy was pretty decent, and you were a little bit like, "Don't listen to him, Paul. He's just biased because he's an Iowa fan."
I did say he is biased. Yes, I didn't say no. Don't listen though. But I mean, Lee will tell you, we were near enough sold on Brock on that first drive coming in for Jimmy. Straight away, you could see what he went on to show for the rest of the season. We've all said it a million times, so I won't say any more than that.
So the final thing that I wanted to get your thoughts on the QB talk, it's going to be a strange one. So hear me out, people. Don't jump in the chat straight away. There's a lot of talk that Brock Purdy's had the fairy tale start. He came in 8-0 in the regular season. If it wasn't for the freak injury, possibly could have gone to the Super Bowl. Now, the knock, if you want to call it that, Nick, on Brock Purdy is he hasn't hit any bumps in the road. True. So my first great love in the NFL was Colin Kaepernick. I thought he was going to be our quarterback for the next 20 years. And then obviously it's well documented what happened. Teams worked him out. Defenses shut him down. And Matt Miyoko talked about this on his recent podcast. And they're saying that they want to see how Brock bounces back and equally how Kyle Shanahan copes if Brock Purdy, because let's face it, the 49ers fan base, we are awesome. We are passionate. But Christ almighty, God help us all.
We are fickle.
If we go 0-4 to start the season and we've got Brock and Trey, whichever one of them's in, and there'll be this constant talk. Now, I know the team block out all the noise. Kyle Shanahan is well known for that. But I'm just kind of, when I say the bumps in the road, I don't want to see us have a losing season. I don't want to see Brock Purdy be terrible. But I kind of know what they mean. They want to see him have maybe a bad performance. But the great thing with our team, Nick, is we don't need the quarterback to win games. So Brock could have a poor game and CMC could come in and win the game. Or Debo could win the game. Or Brandon Ayuk could win the game. Or Nick Bosa. Or Fred Warner. But you see what I mean? I just wanted to get your opinion before we moved on, buddy.
No, it's a really important point. We haven't seen, not that we want to see, we don't want to see a bad game, but it's not the bad game that is the important part. It's how he reacts to it. How does he move forward from that? Because the quarterbacks now, they are lasting a long time. They've got long careers. Now you want to see how are they going to move on after, because they want to see, is this guy really the man to take us absolutely forward for the next decade and more? It's not like a running back where the average length of a career is 4 seasons. The quarterbacks have a lot longer. They want to see how he can move on from making an error. Now, we saw that in bits and bobs because there were times where he didn't have great games. He wasn't amazing for the entire game. Exactly. Got spot on, Cole. He wasn't perfect. And we saw it in little bits. He'd make a bad decision. I think there was one play, I can't remember who it was against now, but it was awful. He absolutely ruined it. And the very next play, Kyle Shanahan came up and just went, right, run the same play. Make the right decision. And he did. That's what we want to see in a bigger context. How does he react to a loss? How does he react to having a completely bad game? Or if, like you said, if he is able to show up at the end of games, perfect. That would be enough for me. That's the important part. It's how he reacts to it all after is the important bit.
I mean, you've got to remember, Colin, it's June. We've got our red and gold rose tinted glasses on. But I think what you talked about, Nick, I talked about it on the 49erFaithfulUK pod. So you're right. Brock came in against Miami. Now, you guys were there in the gold mine. Now, to be honest, I was a little bit critical of Brock because when he first came in, there was a play in particular where he went to escape out of the pocket and he was just faced by 2 dolphins, just 2 beasts on either side. And I think he realized this isn't college. And I think I said after the show, he needs to move up through the pocket. You can't just run around. I was a little bit critical. I'll hold my hands up. But being that Kyle and the team listen, Brock put that right on the next game, and he didn't look back. And I think it was the next game against Tampa where he actually moved up through the pocket and then ran a touchdown himself in.
Yeah.
And I was kind of sat there like, I know what I'm talking about. I'm watching this game, Dave. I know what I'm talking about. Get me on that plane, Kyle. But all jokes aside, we did see it, as Cole said, against the Raiders game. But what I mean, Colin, is just at the moment, everything Brock has touched has turned to gold. Long may that continue, because for me, like you said, the Brock Express, we were well high on it on the 49erFaithful UK. Now, it doesn't mean that we've totally fallen out of love with Trey Lance. I know there was a lot of members in our group who have bought, Trey Lance memorabilia, Trey Lance jerseys. And I said at the start of the show, it will be kind of a bit bittersweet if he moves on somewhere else. But Nick, I'm liking your positivity. Once he's gone, that is right. It's like a certain other QB. I've seen some footage of him in the black and silver. Didn't suit him. But to be fair, he's not a Niner anymore now. So as Simon says there, break out the wheel of positivity. I've got to remember, I'm on with Nick Ludlam. I'm not on with Lee Gowland, who's bringing me down. Only joking, El Presidente.
Oh.
Well, to be fair, I'm surprised he's forgiven you for trying to take his job last week. But anyway, all jokes aside. Now, before we move on, because Simon, I hope you're sticking around, because Simon did drop a comment. We're not going to do it just yet, people. It's only 26 minutes in. But with the Would You Rather this week, Simon put a rather interesting question. And to be fair, I screenshot it straight away, deleted it, sent it to Nick, and I did message Simon privately and say, I've deleted your comment because I didn't want to answer it on the Facebook post. I wanted to answer it on tonight's show. But as we've got Brian in the house, and he's put there that we're speaking the facts, Brian's going to love this bit. So we're well known, Nick, for our love for number 4, Moody Mania has gone worldwide. Now, there's been a little bit of a camp battle from what I have seen. What's your take on Zane Gonzalez versus Jake Moody?
I think you're being incredibly polite to Zane Gonzalez. I don't think there's a battle in the slightest. I think the job is won. I think the job was won the moment we drafted Moody, to be honest. And he's outkicked him.
I was about to say, David Lombardi, he's been on board on the Moody watch, and he dropped a tweet on May the 31st, which said that on that particular day, Moody was 4-4, Gonzalez was 3-4. And Moody, I love this. This is poetry in motion. Moody drilled one from about the 40 yards with a wild amount of room to spare. The ball travelled all the way to the back fence, so it was in the air for at least 60 yards. Now, Rookie of the Year is nailed on. Moody Mania worldwide. Get those number 4 jerseys. But all jokes aside, there was a lot of people overreacting, I think, Nick, when we traded for Gonzalez. And you looked at the details of that contract. It was a move to see whether Robbie would drop his ask. Robbie didn't. And as we've said, Kyle Shanahan doesn't care where he drafts you. It's technically a 4th round. But a few people, including our good friend Mr. Chapman, that video went viral of him when the pick was made. But we called it on the mock draft show. We
didn't call it as high as that, though, in fairness. We took him in 7.
Well, come on, Nick. We've got to take all those wins because the likes of Alex Simpson come along and try and knock you down a peg or two. We called Jair Brown and we called Jake Moody being drafted. Now, to me, it segues nicely into Brown because I'm liking him in that number 27 jersey. What's your take of Brown so far? I think he's done quite all right at the OTAs.
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly showing he's going to be, I think, the primary backup. That's the way it's looking right now. He's going to be the primary backup for the boys at the back there. Just going to have to wait and see. There is a lot that can happen. You never know what's going to come through. It is what it is. I'm really happy with the Jair Brown pick. I think the way in which he's handled himself, not just on the field, but the way in which he's handled himself when he's spoken to the media has been impressive. He speaks very eloquently. He's certainly far more succinct than I am, that's for sure. I bat around every single bush before I hit the point, but he's there, he's in, he's sorted it. But he's a very impressive young man. And I'm liking what I'm seeing so far. It's certainly looking like he's going to be the man that's going to replace Gibson next year.
Yeah. And
You
we
know,
say that.
and that's what it is.
That's the way we do our draft dealings. And to be honest, you're right. There's no pressure for him to come in. And again, I think that'll be a battle to watch out in training camp. We were all delighted when Gibson re-signed. He had that good partnership with Hafanga.
Absolutely.
But as we talk about depth at the QB position, you need it all across the field. And that moves us nicely on to Ronnie Bell. Now, our good friend Wayne Breezy has been quite high on Ronnie Bell, basically the Michigan connection, which, Breezy's a big Michigan fan.
He's going to know it. He's going to know Ronnie Bell inside and out.
Now, apparently, going off the article that I read, apparently he was a 7th round pick, but realistically, he could have been as high as 4th, but there was just quite a few knocks on his size, maybe his catching ability. But apparently, during the rookie mini camp, he stood out. He was the go-to wide receiver for both Darnold and Lance, but apparently he's had a bit of an up and down since then. So he's had a few drops, which we all know Kyle Shanahan doesn't tolerate his wide receivers, as Ayuk found. But there is a lot of talk around the camp that he will make the 53-man roster. Now, that could come at the expense of someone like Danny Gray.
Wouldn't surprise. You never know. I mean, the interesting thing will be to see when they start doing contact drills, how well can he block? Yeah. I've not seen any Michigan games. I'm not going to lie. I think I maybe saw one game towards the end of last year when they were doing quite well, and it was a pretty big one. But I don't know a lot about Ronnie Bell. The big one is going to be, how does he block? Is he willing to get down and dirty? Because the moment Brandon Ayuk was willing to get down and dirty, that's when all of a sudden he became the golden boy. You know, and things really started to take off for him. So if he's willing to do that hard work, if he's willing to maybe spend a year, maybe not so many reps as a wide receiver, but spending that time on the practice team, making some decent hits, showing he's not afraid of contact, that's the bit that's going to edge him towards becoming a receiver for the San Francisco 49ers. You have to block. You're not going to play if you don't block. You're going to be out the door faster than Zane Gonzalez.
Hey, well, I look at the names he's competing against at that bottom end of the wide receiver room: Chris Conley, Willie Snead, Danny Gray. Now, we all remember that Willie Snead didn't seem to get a lot of reps last year, but when he did, he was used in the blocking game. He cleared the way for Ray McLeod against Washington to run round. And like you said, a lot's made of Kyle and the quarterbacks, but a lot of people forget he was a wide receiver. I've seen that footage of him and Chris Sims and Kyle in the Texas uniform, and he has high standards for his wide receivers. And like you said, if you want to play for his team, you've got to do what he says. But for me, it's just a name that I wanted to mention just to keep an eye out. And like you said, I'm like you. I don't watch a lot of college football. I get a lot of my knowledge from the people who do watch it. Nadji, who's the co-host on the 49erFaithfulUK pod, Gary Thorpe, Breezy, John V, or Twitter. If I need any college knowledge, just jump on Twitter, Nick. As I've said before, Saturday night's my night with my good lady, so I don't think I'll get away with watching college football. But
there's always some.
Well, to be honest, I'm not involved with the 49ers and with all the content. I think if I added another team, I don't know how people do it, to be brutally honest. I don't know how people have college teams, NBA teams. It's like a full-time job. Like I said,
we are going to make... Lee and I will make a Stanford fan out of you yet, my friend.
Who? Stanford? I heard that there's only Oregon, apparently.
Who?
Joking. I'm joking.
Do you mean the Beavers? I'm assuming you mean the Beavers, because they're the good team in Oregon, aren't they?
I don't know. I just know that there's a bit of talk between Lee and Nadji, so I'm not going to go down that route. Now, OTAs, the only other thing that I wanted to mention, and we touched upon it last week, is Drake Jackson is looking primed for a breakout year. Now, me and you were both high on the draft last year of Drake Jackson. Have you seen the same articles and footage that I've seen?
Yeah. My opinion on him really hasn't changed since the last time we spoke of him. He's looking good. You know, it's nice to see that Chris Kasarik has had such a big impact on him this last year. You know, he now credits Kasarik with helping him fall in love with the grind, not just the sport, but the grind of being a professional, looking after yourself, training the right way, and all of that goes along with it. That's the bit you want to hear. You know, Chris Kaserik will make you a superstar. You just have to be willing to listen and do everything he says, because he will make you superstar. It's a fact. He's done it before. He'll do it again. I never want to see Chris Kaserik coaching anywhere else in the NFL, to be honest. Yeah.
Well, it just goes to show you how highly thought of he is, Nick, that he sat in on the new replacement defensive coordinator. So Kyle Shanahan had Kaserik in on the interviews for Steve Wilks. And I'm excited to see what Wilks does, but people park that thought, because we're going to have lots to talk about in training camp about the defense and Wilks. The last bit of news that we wanted to break, I text Nick a tweet from Matt Burrows before we went live. So apparently Nick Bosa, Trent Williams and Hargrave are there today, because the mandatory mini camp has started today. If I believe my timing's right, they might actually be out on the practice field at the moment. Now, Nick Bosa does not appear to be practicing, but before anybody gets all worked up about it, there's no drama for me with Bosa, with his contract. The fact that he's in the building, you know, you think back to last year with Debo holding out for his contract. Bosa himself, Nick, has come out and said, my agent's sorting that out. I'm going nowhere. But I just wanted to put that out there, because we did see that tweet before we went live, and you said to me straight away, yeah, I'm not even worried about that.
I'm not. You know, it's too early. He's a veteran guy. He knows how to handle himself. He takes care of himself, you know, so incredibly well. I'm really not worried about it, to be honest, in the slightest. Nick will be fine. You know, I'll be honest. I of all the things really from today that I love seeing the most, Hargrave. Seeing Hargrave in Niners colors, that was kind of cool. Again, not reading too much into that. It's not like this is going to cost Nick Bosa his starting role in the team. It's not going to be any less of a pass rusher. So no, it's a non-starter or anything on there for me.
And what I love about the 49er Faithful UK community, next on the agenda, Mr. Graham swoops in and steals our thunder, but I like it, Neil. So he's put, evening, gents. Debo has just said in the live camp presser that last year he was awful in every aspect of his game. He doesn't want to put anything like that on tape again. So get buckled up for the Debo revenge season. Now, I'm not going to lie. I'm on record saying that CMC was my next jersey purchase, but Fanatics had a sale at the weekend. As you do, having a cheeky little look, preparing for my summer holiday. Obviously, I'm going to be rocking Niners gear. And there was a Debo jersey that was in my size, the style I like. And I was like, oh, do I get a Debo jersey? So, to be fair, Neil, that's music to my ears. Now, we all remember the game against the Rams where Jimmy's throw might have been a bit high. Debo rolled it down, ran through, and stole Jalen Ramsey's soul. So, if that is Debo being awful, I can't wait to see the new improved Debo. And as Simon's put there, if Debo was awful, imagine a good season. And Luke, I don't believe anybody could get that man any fitter. So apparently Nick Bosa has hired a personal nutrition expert to help him get fit during the off season. So that, again, if the defensive player of the year is setting the tone, that just filters down to the rest of the team. So you've got the leaders, you know, Fred Warner, Bosa, Debo, all coming and putting the work in. It bodes well, doesn't it, Nick?
Of course it does. You know, I mean, Tom Brady did it. Seemed to work out pretty well for him. So yeah, I mean, I'm all for it. If he's going to go out and source out these people that are going to help him and focus 100% on him, go for it, man. Go for it.
So, people, I digress no more. It is that time. Now, as I said earlier on, the Would You Rather is very special tonight because Simon frisked me. I didn't have time to type it up, Simon, because I have been at work today. So Simon has a very special Would You Rather for both me and Nick. So I'm going to ask the question, Nick. You can answer first. So,
okay,
Simon's Would You Rather. So the 49ers have 2 Super Bowl losses. For those that remember both, it hurts for different reasons. Father Time has presented 2 options to you, but you can only choose one of them. Would you rather change the outcome of the Super Bowl loss to the Ravens or the Super Bowl loss to the Chiefs? And I remember you can only change one. You have to give your reasons why. So over to you, buddy.
I'm not gonna lie. I did see him post this in the group, and I've lost sleep thinking about this, because it's a rough one. Because you look at they both hurt like hell. They still hurt, even to this day. I mean, it was the loss to the Ravens that made me a proper diehard Niners fan. It was losing that game, seeing Ravens fans celebrating made me love the Niners so much more. Up to that point, I said I was a fan of the Niners. I was a very casual fan. I didn't watch every game. I mean, since then, I barely missed a single snap of the 49ers season. Hell, even getting diagnosed with multiple sclerosis didn't stop me. I watched the games in hospital in my bed. So I suppose in a way, if the Niners don't lose that game, do I become such a big Niners fan? So I was thinking about it from that way. So for that reason, do I pick the loss against the Chiefs? And you get then the ring for players like Joe Staley. You get your ring for your George Kittles. Kyle Shanahan gets off the mark, and if he gets off the mark, does he start winning more and more? But that loss to the Ravens, that hurt like hell. Ultimately that led to us lose. And we ended up, the team got scrapped practically, thanks to Mr. He Who Shall Not Be Named, who now is employed by the Jacksonville Jacks somehow. We lost all the players. We lost Harbaugh, and of course Harbaugh lost to his brother in that game, the Harbaugh Ball. I think I would still change the Ravens game.
Right. So now that you've answered, some people in the chat will have been like, Mr. Hope. So Luke would change the Ravens Super Bowl loss. Simon is laughing at you losing sleep. All I can think that is. Colin has gone. He would go with the Chiefs. We had it won. The Ravens was such a poor start. And Dan has put the Ravens. So you would change the Ravens.
I'm changing the Ravens win. Harbaugh gets his ring. Niners have got 6. And like I say, Pat Willis is stood there with Super Bowl MVP trophy. Happy days.
So I don't think Colin's biased at all with the fact that he'd have won £1,100 on the Chiefs one, and he didn't cash out $825. Now, to be fair, similar to you, as soon as I saw Simon drop that, and I am very active on my phone, much to Tracy's disgust. Like I said, I screenshot it and I deleted it straight away. And I reached out to Simon and I said, look, I've deleted it because it's such a great question. We're going to answer it on the show. Now, my love for the 49ers is very similar to yours. So again, I fell in love with the NFL during that season. The Niners went to the Super Bowl and I was kind of on the fence. Should I become a Niners fan? Did I want to be one of those American football supporters that picked the Super Bowl winning champions in their first year? There's a lot of Patriots fans from Darlington, where I am. And like you said, the fact that we lost, and I didn't fully understand the ramifications of that loss at the time. And it's known in my story that the next day, Nick, I was walking to work with my newly purchased 49ers hat on, and a load of teenagers started heckling me. And when you're arguing with random strangers on the street in the northeast of England about your team. And I thought, do you know what? That's solidified my love for the 49ers. Now, equally, the Chiefs Super Bowl, Mr. Gowland used to book the Super Bowl meetup the start of every year. So my first Super Bowl meetup with Lee in the casino in Newcastle was the awful Patriots-Rams Super Bowl. There was about 8 of us there. And we approached the casino afterwards and said, look, we want this for our own group. We can run a better show. So the Chiefs Super Bowl year, we had our Super Bowl party booked at the start of the year. And as that season went on, and as Colin said, we had the game won. I was up in Newcastle with about 50 of the 49er Faithful UK. Tracy joins me. It's the only time she's ever told me off watching football, because when the Chiefs scored that go-ahead touchdown, I slammed my phone on the table. I had to sulk. I went off to the toilets for 5 minutes, give my head a shake and thought, Paul, it's just a game. Came back. When those lights came on, Nick, and the atmosphere, I just it was a what if moment, because if we'd won that Super Bowl, that party in Newcastle would have gone on for days.
Oh.
And for me, I think my emotional connection to the team had grown because of the first loss. So it's worked out quite well. You would change the Ravens one. I would change the Chiefs one. So everybody's happy.
We have the same reasoning, but we went with a completely different result.
So Luke has put there that both Justin and Alden Smith had hurt shoulders before the Super Bowl. Bruce Miller was tackled on that kickoff TD. The Ravens said Kaepernick had a walking touchdown. Had our Harbaugh not called the timeout. Losing to Pat Mahomes is like losing to Man City. The Ravens' loss is worse. Gore, Willis, Vernon get a Super Bowl ring.
Yeah.
And Simon, who asked the question, put that he would change the Ravens one because it hurt that we lost that unbeaten Super Bowl run. He was heartbroken. Now, for me, I have watched that Ravens Super Bowl back, and the comeback was unbelievable. The Chiefs Super Bowl loss, I can't watch it back. And they do that America's Game on Game Pass whenever I see the Super Bowl run from the Chiefs. And I'll be honest, I have no dislike of Patrick Mahomes, Kelsey. The Chiefs in general are a great team to watch, but you can't watch your team lose when.
I've never, ever been able to rewatch either of those games. I haven't got the heart in it to do it. I can't.
So, my would you rather, I had to prepare two for tonight because the one I was going to ask you has been ruined by this question. So, while I get mine right in my head, I'm going to pass the mic back to you for you to ask yours. Because to be honest, mine was going to be a choice of Willis or Staley for a Super Bowl ring, but you've kind of answered that in your question. So I had a second one prepared, but I just need to get it right in my head. So you can ask me yours while I'm getting the wording right.
Fair play. Okie dokie. Right then. So my would you rather is actually going to be, it's fairly short and sweet, to be honest, Paul. There's obviously now been, in the last couple of weeks, a lot of talk about what remains of the 49ers cap space. We don't have a huge amount, but there's enough. There's enough. Should you want to go and get someone, especially once Nick Bosa signed that contract. So my would you rather, again, like I said, very simple. Would you rather spend all that money, go and get someone for this year, go all out and say, right, this is it. We are all in. Or would you rather save that money for next year?
Personally, I'm going to save it for next year because it carries over. I already know the salary cap hit for Ayuk, for Samuel. If it meant we kept number 11 and we kept 19, at the moment, there isn't anyone that jumps off the page that's a free agent. It's a good question because, like you said, there's a lot of people with trigger fingers thinking, we've got that money. It's like Madden, we need to spend it. We're not the Rams. I think the fact that we've got a good enough team as it stands at the moment, and what I like about our organisation, we've always got one eye on next year. So it is rather short and sweet, but I am going to keep the money in my pocket. What about you? What would you do before I ask you mine?
Yeah, I'm keeping the money. I want to make sure that we can extend the Super Bowl window, quite frankly. I believe the team is more than capable of winning this year. And with, if we keep the team together, why not go back to back?
So I've managed to stall you for long enough. So there's been a lot of talk, Nick, about the 49er Faithful UK meetups, and everybody's getting excited. Now, the great thing about this segment is it's hypothetical. So I can ask you anything that I want in regards. So the 49er Faithful UK meetup has been announced. The venue's announced. We're all going. All sorted. Nick Clark can't get hold of me or Lee for some reason, and you're next in line. So Nick Clark gets you on the phone. He says, right, Nick, I've got a choice. There's two people willing to come over to the UK, but you can only pick one. So I let the cat out of the bag earlier because it was a Super Bowl rings, but I'm changing it round. So Joe Staley and Patrick Willis are both on standby, but there's only enough money in the budget to fly one of them across. Now, Nick Clark promises that he won't let anybody know that you had the deciding vote, but we all know Mr. Hope has his ways of finding out. So my would you rather is you get the choice of Patrick Willis or Joe Staley at the 49er Faithful UK meetup? Who are you picking and why?
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is all we have time for this evening. Thank you all for joining. Paul, once again, has decided to be evil, and we're cutting the show short.
Tracy said I had to be nicer. That was a nice question.
Oh, yeah, great. That's you being nice. Fantastic. Oh, God, I hate you sometimes. That's an awful thing to have to say.
Now, I didn't say whoever doesn't come next year. I could have been that evil. But just for
True.
this year, hypothetically.
That's very true. However,
Joe
what you
Nedney,
haven't said is I also can't go like rob a bank and I'll pay for the second one.
Well, Nick Clark spent half his budget on Lee Gowland. You know, he's more famous than any of the Niners organisation. But no, all jokes aside, I just thought, given Joe Nedney was such a legend at last year's meetup, but there was a lot of hype about who could come, and obviously they're on social media. But for me, Willis or Staley, there's different reasons why, but
there is. I would adore to meet, but either they're both they're legends. You know,
well, the chat's divided.
Simon either of them, and you cut through. It's they're red and gold right the way. They just spent their entire careers as Niners. They were both. I'm going to take Joe. I'm going to make a snap decision. Now, the only reason for that is the possibility of potentially seeing a Joe show filmed live. That, I think, that could be something special. I'm going to go with Joe just because he's such an entertainer. You know, he would have us all in stitches.
Patrick? Yeah, I'm sorry, Patrick. It's no good. Nick doesn't want you to come, buddy. It's all right. Yeah, sorry. Bye.
No Pablo Anglés. No Pablo. No.
To be fair, though.
Soy is Esteban.
To be fair, Luke has put that he would pick Joe Staley because he's funny. Simon went for Willis, but then put a laughing emoji. And Luke has put that he would pick Richard Sherman over anyone. He'd love to bend his ear on play safety, politics, Stanford. And
Richard Sherman, he's a very eloquent man. I'd love to actually talk about with Richard Sherman is how he actually went about essentially negotiating his own contract. Because you don't see that very often. I mean, he's clearly an intelligent man. You have to have a certain grade point average to get into Stanford in the first place. You have to be a clever man. You know, they don't prioritize sport over academia. So it'd be quite cool to listen to him regarding that as well.
So that was me being nice, mate. But thank you for playing along. So, hey, you've just secured one of the legends at the 49er Faithful UK meetup. Nick Clark has your number. You have made the big time. I don't know why I get so much hate for these questions.
You know why.
But like I said, originally it was going to be which one of them had a Super Bowl ring. But then obviously Simon presented us with that epic question. So if anybody's watching, you do have a would you rather for us like Simon. Either tag us on the group page, send us a DM, because part of the vision of this wonderful show of mine and Nick's is it is what it says on the tin. The 49er Faithful UK Live. We love the interaction. We've tried to bring what the content creators across the pond give their fan base. We love the fact that the likes of Bryant join us. Luke has joined us from across the pond. Awesome. But the reason we do go live at this time on a Tuesday, it is 8 p.m. in the UK, 12 noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. When the season goes live, obviously we're hoping to be adding a bit more, because what we decided was when we went live with the 49er Faithful UK YouTube show, we didn't just want to churn content out for the sake of churning content out. For those people who might not have been with me and Nick last week, we will be taking a break first week of August.
We will.
I will be having a well-earned social media break. I'll be on a sunny beach in Tenerife with my good lady and the girls.
What Paul doesn't know is he's paying for me as well to make up for all this bullying.
I said, what bullying? You are the main man. I'll give you some epic choices. And James, I love a bit of breaking news. So James has dropped a picture of the group flag will be posted on the group page. But it's going to be an unusual one. So for those people, James was the responsible one for getting a photo outside of Seattle's ground last year on his trip to the States. Decked head to toe, red and gold, flying the flag. And I'll be honest, if you're on your hollybobs this year, if you're flying around the world, take your flag, hit me up on Twitter, because we are trying to get one over on Eric Oregard, who's member of the admin team. He is by far winning with wherever he's got his photos and flags. He's got many a country ticked off on his list. But obviously there's been a lot of talk about the gold mine and the game this year. We're not sure of the exact date yet. Mr. Gowland will keep everybody posted. And I'm sure when Nick, you will be working very hard over these next few days, because we will be back next Tuesday. And I'm sure that you will have a very special Would You Rather for me. Isn't that right, buddy?
I'm coming after you with all my heart next week.
Before we shoot off, do you have any final thoughts for the viewers? Do you have any shows to promote, or are you kind of like just sticking with me at the moment?
We're just having a nice chill time. It's the off season, it's nice and relaxed. But I think, as always, guys, we want to just say thank you to everyone who's tuned in. You guys fill that chat bar up on the side of our screens. It's awesome to see. It really is. The show's come on leaps and bounds. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. It really does make the world of difference for us. But yeah, again, guys, thank you all so much for tuning in.
If you are watching back pre-recorded, please leave a comment in the YouTube comment page, because that also helps. Do share. Don't be shy like me. I'm not on social media very often, so I would appreciate if you could share the links. I'll just think that Simon has just put in before we shoot off. Great banter. Cheers, lads. All the best. And we do appreciate the support, Luke. Get those thumbs up. Get the like button clicked. And Nick, as I load the video up, buddy, I think all that's left for us to say is we will see you guys next week. But until then, go Niners.
Go Niners.
We love the San Francisco 49ers deep in the heart, like Joe Montana in the corner.